If I want to like fine tooth comb it, there's a couple of nitpicks, but all of them are smooth overable, because I could have come up with a better word for that. All of them could be smoothed over by how much charm and how sweet and earnest a lot of these characters are, and how much I didn't want them to be hurt.
Young drunk.
Skiddly-doo-doo.
Skiddly-doo-diddly-doo. What's up to our sidekicks and henchfolk out there in the Geek Nation? Welcome to a nasty CultPop podcast, episode 84, a show where we talk about movies and comics and video nasties and all the other things that scratch your nerdy itches.
Is it episode 83? Note from the producer. He had mentioned that I might have my numbers wrong.
This is 83.
Oh, episode 83.
Oh,
whoopsie doodles.
Really tried to get away with an extra one, but thanks for nothing.
We're coming to you live from Young Chunk HQ, wherein Dylan will keep track of our numbers. It's a bomb-ass podcasting production space in Philadelphia, PA. I'm your local video store manager, JD of Johnny Destructo's Hero Complex, which is a comic store located at 4327 Main Street, a super rad comic shop which caters to super rad folks just like you. So come in and give me a little...
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Nah, don't do that. Don't do that.
He's there on Sundays. Right. Don't give him a little...
Well, also, ask in the moment, because consent can immediately be taken.
That is true. You're right. I'm sorry.
Just don't come in expecting... He's open to it.
Yes, I am.
Just ask, hey, are you into nipple play?
Case by case basis, right now.
In this moment.
Because also, that's an open-ended question.
That's true.
In general.
Right. In this moment, are you into nipple play?
It could be that someone shows up immediately after Alice was here, and she always wrecks them. She really gets in there and just
really strong forearms.
Nurples.
She's got literal sandpaper gloves.
Pincers. Yeah, she wears little lobster claws. With me tonight to talk is Noel.
What's up?
And Alice.
Hey.
Nipple play.
Also in the booth is our trusty producer, Dylan. We already did all that. Before we jump into tonight's show, we want to thank you for joining us. If you're here with us live, which you're probably not, feel free to comment, like, subscribe, because this isn't a live show right now. And hit the bell icon so you know when we go live.
Oh, we got to bring it up.
I do.
I was going to say,
it's irrelevant. It's obvious, but you don't always have to say how obvious it is.
We'll
you just kind of roll.
We'll probably be in the chat.
We will be in the chat because we're not going to be, whatever.
For tonight's main comic, we're going to be reviewing the recently collected 2023 comic book miniseries, The Nasty, a coming-of-age tale about horror-obsessed teens in 1994 Scotland from Vault Comics. So, what did I want to say? I want to say that we have an email. We got letters.
We have letter.
Oh, letters? We got lots and lots and lots and lots of letters.
I'm just going to stare at you because you're going to do it every time.
Well, Brian said he never did it. So do I not do it?
Do what?
Sing?
Wouldn't sing.
Oh, you always sing. You have to sing.
Okay.
This is from Pink Apocalypse, friend of the show, Pink Apocalypse.
Friend of the world. Friend of animals. Friend of
plants.
Like-minded people. Friends of humanity. Pink Apocalypse.
Noel indirectly mentioned something during your Furiosa convo that compelled me to admit something.
Uh-oh. I
have a very particular movie fetish.
Oh.
My movie fetish is nipple play.
Sandy nipple play, though, because it was Furiosa.
My movie fetish is conversation.
I have eyeline to the producer, and he almost spit all over the board.
Spit take.
For that one. Thank you. Sandy nipple play. That's actually a good band name. If you want to go ahead and take it, you can.
My movie fetish is conversations without dialogue. I'll give two examples from nerd movies to cast the widest statistical net, hoping people get it. All right.
Ready.
In Aliens, Ripley is clutching Newt and stumbles into the Hive Queen. Ripley gawks up at her, and the Queen directs several warriors to attack. Ripley sees them, gives a flamethrower blast over the eggs to send a message, and the Queen directs the warriors to back off. Then, while Ripley is backing away, the Queen directs an egg to hatch next to Ripley instead. Ripley sees it, gives a "Are you fucking serious?" look, and opens fire while retreating.
I love that fucking movie so much. That sequence is perfect.
Yeah. The second is the table scene in Unbreakable by M. Night Shyamalan. When Bruce Willis's son is too angry to speak to him over Willis's denial of being different, Willis slides a newspaper toward him with the hero story, admitting the truth. His son tears up, but Willis urges him to remain quiet, a secret they have to share. I could give more examples, but they would be obscure. When I hear reviews that complain about minimal dialogue, I get excited. Do any of you have a particular movie fetish? Stay cool, Pink. So, just right off the bat, last week's episode, we talked about A Quiet Place 1 and A Quiet Place 2. And I feel like if both of those movies have that.
Yeah. Well, do you have
as far as that particular, as far as your movie fetish, Pink, is concerned?
Pink, can you follow-up question to your email, which is absolutely fantastic, and
Wonderful.
I appreciate and agree. Also, too, the idea that good writing is over expository paragraphs of flowery bullshit is so false, because it is that. Like, that scene in Alien was written, and it was just minimized in such a effective way that it was dialogueless. But I want to ask you if this counts as a dialogueless scene. It's only like 2 seconds of screen time, but it's like my favorite 2 seconds of screen time in almost any movie. It's in From Dusk Till Dawn. I think I've talked to you about this before.
Okay.
Have you seen Dusk Till Dawn?
No. Sorry.
You're in
Talk
for a
about it
treat.
anyway.
Are you
Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez.
Of
Yeah.
Dusk Till
Yeah, I'm aware.
So you know what it's about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep going.
Damn it.
Sorry.
So
The fun of that movie is not knowing what it's about.
there's a halfway through the movie, there's a scene where all shit breaks loose, vampires everywhere. And Salma Hayek, the head vampire in this moment, is throwing bodies, and she sees her prey at the end of the room. It's George Clooney. George Clooney is like fending off people. He sees her coming. He doesn't have a weapon. He has nothing that he can do, and she's coming at him faster. And there's one like really close-up shot of him, and he just cracks his neck and bares his jaw like he's preparing for her hit, and then she flies him across the room. But that 2 seconds of him just like doing that
Like, all right.
is almost like the best character work for that scene. And I literally, my VHS, I would just rewind it over and over again, because it was just like, it was one of those early moments of realizing like acting isn't necessarily dialogue. It's everything about the scene, including how much you don't do. And I fucking love that. I love that scene.
I often wonder about how things like that are written. Like, is that something he did on the day and they were like,
Keep it.
awesome?
Yeah.
Was that something that was in the script where like, okay, get ready to take a hit? Because that does seem like a very Clooney thing.
Something
Clooney
that
seems
small,
like,
probably on the day.
yeah.
But an entire sequence, like all of Groot's dialogue is written out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Each of
As
his I am
English.
Groot's
Well, like
has an actual sentence behind it.
There's an English version somewhere that they just won't reveal, but that's all dialogue written out, and they like peel back because the people in the scene need to know what's going to happen. But
Yeah.
But I love that shit. I don't know if I have another. I don't know if I.
This doesn't really
have
count
one.
as a conversation, but when Ben Skywalker does the
Oh my God. And then he reaches behind his back.
yeah.
Reaches behind his back. Shrug.
Also, an excellent like character choice in the moment is just like, yeah, yeah, all
And then
right.
just.
Yeah.
What's yours?
Mine would be in horror movies. I think the kids nowadays call this a good for her horror movie. And my example would be Carrie, where she has been bullied relentlessly her entire life. Her mother abuses her, and then at the end she just fucks everybody up. Like, you know what?
Good for her.
Good for her.
I like that.
I like that's like my thing. I'm into like women in horror movies when like everything has gone wrong for them, and even if they become the villain at the end, if I understand, I'm like, you know what? Good for her.
You stole mine.
No, damn it.
Mine wasn't a good for her,
Yeah.
but mine was revenge stories.
Oh yeah.
I love a revenge story, like someone who has been put upon or traumatized and then having to get revenge and seeking it out. I love revenge movies so much.
Yeah.
I think I know mine is, and I'm upset about it. But go ahead.
Mine specific. I don't know why specifically. It's what I mean, because I am a woman. That makes sense. Like, mine is specifically when it's good.
I mean,
sorry. Yes.
I love that shit too.
Yeah.
I
that's-
Sit
But I
on
do
Your
love
Grave.
Yes.
Come on.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's a long movie.
That's all I was saying. I love like Carrie's the one example that comes to mind.
Carrie's a
I know
good
some
one.
people say Midsommar is good for her. I'm not entirely sure because she kind of gets like
No, man.
She's not an active participant in
no,
that.
that is
that
not-
was something happening to her. It was a greater plan. It
Yeah.
wasn't her revenge
And she
story.
is also a victim of a cult.
I agree, but there's been discourse where hers is a good for her story. I'm trying to think of other ones. There's definitely more where I've been like, this is
When I
this is my
first
shit.
saw Midsummer, I did think good for her. You know what I mean?
And then you think about
But
it and you're like,
now that I'm like, oh no, they're all
she's been
victims.
indoctrinated.
Yeah, she's been
into a cult.
indoctrinated. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my movie fetish is elevated trash.
Oh,
okay.
I almost said that.
Yeah.
Is that wet puppets?
Wet puppets.
Wet puppets is a fetish and a half. Yeah.
he loves wet
No,
puppets.
elevated trash. I talked about it last week with Battleship, movies like Bad Boys, Fast and Furious. They're inherently trash. They're not meant to be good, but when they're earnest and the emotions kick and they're really well done, there's no better kind of excitement. Yeah.
Explain to the people the difference between trash and garbage.
Trash is pulpy. It's noir. It's if it came out in the 50s, it would be on really thin paper and you would read it underneath underneath covers with a flashlight. Like it's not. Yeah, it's trashy. It's trashy.
Yeah.
Whereas
Because
garbage,
trash is usually dry paper.
yeah,
As opposed to garbage, which has like coffee grounds in it and oil.
Yeah, garbage is wet and smelly.
Yeah.
Garbage is bad. Trash is fun.
Yeah.
But wet puppets are trash.
Wet
Are they
puppets.
good?
Wet puppets are good trash.
Wet puppets are, trashy.
Yeah.
They're good trash. Not garbage. There's garbage wet puppets.
Yes.
But
Meet the Feebles.
I think that's a joke, a bad joke taken to its full conclusion.
I think it was a joke that took too long.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
they win for it, and I just respect the win for it. I can't watch that movie
Peter
more than
Jackson.
once.
Mm-hmm.
Trash. Something trashy, something fun, and when it's done really well, I'm more excited than anything else. I think that good writing and just like caring about the subject elevates anything, and it's usually in action movies.
I almost said bad horror movies, which is another one.
But I have limits
I don't know
though.
if that's a fetish.
I like bad horror movies too, but I like
don't watch
bad
anything.
movies that are so bad they're good. But I have my limits. Like I used to go to my friend Mark's place, and he would make me watch. Like Meet the Feebles is a bad movie that's bad for me. Like it was funny for 10 minutes, and then I was like, oh, we got like
All right,
such a long
you don't like
movie.
the 7-minute number about sodomy
No, not so much.
by a fox?
But yeah, even I have my limits. Like I
Okay.
won't watch anything. Like a lot of Trauma, I won't even fuck with.
Oh, I fuck with Trauma all day.
Like Tromeo and Juliet and
Great. Trauma and Julia was great. Return to Nukem High was a goddamn masterpiece. Part 1 and 2. Toxic Avenger.
Toxic Avenger is
all
a
day,
classic.
man.
I can't wait for the
Part 4.
remake.
If it ever comes out, that shit's been done forever. Have you seen Toxic Avenger?
I haven't seen the original now.
Oh,
It
buddy.
was a cartoon.
Toxic Crusaders?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't believe there was that Saturday morning cartoon.
Trauma's a film fetish now too, because even bad Trauma is like, they fucking made that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, speaking of video
films.
nasties, before we get into the main event,
Yeah. There's something you'd like to
JD.
ask us?
JD,
Yeah.
I would like you to ask Alice what she's been up to this week.
Hey, Alice. I've been talking to my friend Noel.
Yeah.
And he wanted me to
don't know
pass
if I've
you
met
a
him.
note.
Ooh. Squeeze.
He wants to know what you've been up to this week.
I have been watching a delightful show on Dropout TV, formerly College Humor, now Dropout.
Oh, right.
Called Game Changer. I've watched all of the earlier ones, but recently season 6 has been coming out. And so are either of you familiar?
I do not have Dropout TV, but they are a mainstay in my algorithm.
Yeah,
So
I was just going to
watch
say
the
they're
clips
all over
constantly.
TikTok.
Yeah.
And at least my TikTok just catered to me. So that makes sense. But so the concept is Sam Reich, who is, I believe, the CEO of Dropout. He hosts a game show every episode. And it's shot like very vintage, old school, classic game shows. Like, everybody come on down. There's 3 contestants each week, sometimes more, sometimes, usually 3, sometimes more.
Not the same Game Changers.
The game is different each episode, but
I have seen this.
but the players don't know what game they're walking into.
Yeah.
And they're all improv comedians, so they're all this is their shit. Like this is all so funny.
It's an unstructured version of Whose Line?
Mm-hmm. Whose line is it anyway?
That's Make Some Noise is more like that, which was a spin-off of this one.
Oh.
This Game Changers, he did one episode that was strictly like, give me an impression of this. Or like, he wouldn't even say, give me an impression. He would just put a name on the board and it would be like, duck. Yeah. And then they were like, do you want us to say duck? Do you want us to describe a duck? Or do you just want to make a duck noise? And then the person who made a duck noise got a point.
Yeah. And
then it got crazier, like, give me, or like, 1,000 Batmans. So somebody had to do an impression of 1,000 Batmans.
Right.
And so that became its own show because it was so popular, called Make Some Noise, which is a different one. The most recent episode, it was the finale of Game Changer, are you familiar with the reality television show The Circle?
No. Minimally. I have seen
I haven't
minutes
watched
of it.
either, but he took, I think it was 7 of them, like all people who work for Dropout TV. They all had to stay in a separate hotel room, which he like tailored to their specific taste. So Brennan Lee Mulligan, who's a very well-known DM, was one of the people on it. And he had a Dungeons and Dragon room for him.
Oh, that's cool.
But they each had to make up a persona and make a social media account for this persona. And they all interact with each other. They have to try and guess who is who. And they don't know which of their cast members are there.
Right.
And he threw in a random 8th person who isn't part of the cast, but like another well-known comedian.
Yeah.
And
that's fun.
And they like, it could be anything. Brennan Lee Mulligan's character was literally just called a bug with a big ass. And it was a cartoon ant with a giant ass. And it was so funny watching all these people riff and try to interact with each other and guess each other based off each other's like bits. Like, oh, okay. Zach Oyama talks like this a lot. I think he's Grandma Sweetie, which was his character. It was so funny. It was just a grandma who didn't know how to use the computer. So it was so good. Anyway, highly recommend.
It sounds awesome. That sounds very intricate.
All the games are so intricate. There's some, oh my God, there's a recurring one called Sam Says, which is literally just Simon Says. And it's become popular because the characters dread when they're on that one because he gets so nitty gritty with like everything. He'll like pretend the game's over. He'll send them on. He's like, hey, like, thanks for playing, guys. Like, you can go outside now. And like, I have a party bus waiting for you. But then like, there'll be like a sign on the party bus, be like, remember, the game's still going on. Don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do this. Sam says, don't do this. And then they come back in and they think they're like getting ready to go. And he's like, all right, you lost 3 points. You lost 10 points. And they're like, that's so
fun. I like
good.
that. That's
it's
cool.
a lot of fun.
And how do you get Dropout TV?
You have to subscribe on Drop. It's its own website, its own streaming. They have some content on YouTube. Like a lot of the Dimension 20 stuff, which is their D&D stuff. That's how I got into Dropout, is on YouTube. But I think you have to subscribe on Dropout TV. I think it's like $5 a month, maybe. It's worth it to me.
Sub question: what is your login?
It's my brother's. I just give out his email right now.
Everyone listening.
Yeah. You don't have a limit to.
That's nice.
You don't have a limit to streams, but.
So JD.
Yeah. No.
I want to talk to you about what I've been up to this week.
Oh, good. I was going to ask you.
What have you been up to this week?
Oh, shit. So there was a movie back in the 80s starring
Sean Penn.
No.
Charlie Sheen.
No.
Brad Pack. All of them.
All the entire Rat Pack.
Molly Ringwald.
By the way, there is a documentary about the Rat Pack.
I shouldn't have done this. I'm
I
throwing
want to
you
watch
off.
that.
Oh, yeah. I saw that.
That looks so fun. Anywho,
It's called Bratz. It's directed by Andrew McCarthy.
No, starring. Oh man, now you messed me up. What's
Harrison
his name?
Ford,
Harrison
man.
Ford.
Yeah.
Oh god damn it! And it was called Presumed Innocent. I was surprised to see on my bleep bloop blop that Apple TV has a show called Presumed Innocent, starring
Jake Gyllenhaal.
And somebody else who I quite like from Garden State.
Zach Braff?
The other guy.
No.
Peter Sarsgaard. Ruth Negga, Peter Sarsgaard.
Ruth Negga from Preacher. She played Tulip in Preacher. Anyway, this is a very serious drama. So basically, Jake Gyllenhaal plays a character who is a lawyer, and one of his colleagues, a woman that he knows who worked in the office with him, is brutally murdered in the same way that a previous murderer murdered folks and went to prison for. So is it a copycat killer? Also, she is the person who put this person away. So yeah.
A horrific murder upends the Chicago prosecuting attorney's office when one of its own is suspected of the crime, leaving the accused fighting to keep his family together.
So he's married to Ruth Negga. They have children together, and it keeps unfolding. It is very, very good. Highly recommend if you like a good crime drama.
How many episodes are up?
I want to say there's like maybe 3 or 4 so far, but yeah, I was really, I'm really into the show. I think it's really, really good. Have either of you seen the original film?
I have not.
Which is based on a novel.
I think
I'm vaguely familiar with it, but I have not seen
a long time ago. It came out in 1990. I get that and Witness mixed up often. I watched
That's
a lot of Harrison Ford movies when I was younger, and a lot of them bleed together.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually been I want to make it a point to go and just watch Harrison Ford movies again.
I actually just recently acquired Air Force One on 4K, and I can't wait to watch it.
Oh man, that was a good one. Gary
Get off my
Oldman.
plane.
Gary Oldman.
Yeah, Gary Oldman, William H. Macy.
So the only question, if anybody out there is watching this show, O.T. Fabinel, I can't believe it's pronounced Fagbenel. O.T.
He was in Black Widow.
Yeah, and he was also in Bridesmaid Tale. What?
Handmaid's Tale?
Handmaid's Tale.
I was like, Bridesmaids?
Oh, yeah, he's the husband.
Yeah, he's the husband. But he is doing something so specific in this show. He is putting on this weird, throaty voice. He sounds like he's got cotton like stuck in his throat. And I don't understand why he's doing it. I don't know if it is a very specific Chicago reference because this takes place in Chicago, right? Yeah. He's not talking normal. He's doing a thing. And I want someone out there in podcast land to tell me what it is because I don't get it.
You heard in podcast land.
So it's 8 episodes long. So you recommend it?
I highly recommend it.
Cool.
This is great. Yeah, I love Ruth Negga. I'm glad that she's getting more work. I really loved her as Tulip. Jake Gyllenhaal. I'm always there for a Jake Gyllenhaal. I think he's
got no issues with
fantastic.
Yeah.
So yeah, highly recommend this. Oh, and Peter Sarsgaard. I was very excited to see Peter Sarsgaard back being an absolute prick.
Aww.
Garbage person.
Yeah, just an absolute
garbage, not trash.
Yep.
Yeah, garbage, not he's good at being an awful person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Noel.
What have you
Yeah.
What have you been up to this week?
I've been catching up on a show that I hate, love, hate. It's The Boys.
Oh, I'll tell you, a lot of other people hate it.
Season 4.
Without a love.
Well,
because they just realized it's about conservative.
Yeah, I know. Like that's a separate conversation. So I have watched all 3 seasons. I do enjoy it exponentially more than the comic, and just as a character study, it's really interesting. I always find myself at the end of each season not wanting to revisit it because it's such a mean-spirited show.
Nihilistic.
It's mean-spirited, nihilistic. I want it to end. Yeah. I want, like, we have been on the same character arc of the Homelander just getting worse and worse and worse for 3 seasons, going on 4 now. It just needs to have some sort of story finality. Yeah. It needs to be over. Season 4 started. I was always going to watch it, but everyone kind of freaked out about it because I think there's a contingent online who have realized that the satire is about them and not for them, which I find fucking awesome.
The fact that it took more than 1 episode, is boggling. I am boggled.
It's weird, but they also announced that the upcoming season 5 is the end.
Oh, okay.
It's over. It's going to have an actual finite ending, and we're good. So I'm like, oh, cool. Mm-hmm. I'm more excited about this now because I love endings. So the first 3 episodes dropped, and they're great.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's more of the same. It's really awful. People being awful to each other. There's specifically a subplot about a character called Firecracker, who is a conspiracy theorist, has a YouTube show, talks about adrenochrome and all that stuff. But in the superheroes, come on, don't you know?
Adrenochrome?
Drinking baby's blood.
What?
For the adrenochrome to stay young. Yeah, that's what all the Dems are doing.
Do you know what this is?
You know.
Yeah.
I've never heard of this.
That's what all the Democrats are doing. And Tom Hanks and Oprah Winfrey.
You guys have been drinking
They've been.
No
not
one's
me.
given me
Don't,
any.
Hey. It's just these deep in the weeds kind of bullshit conspiracy theory stuff, and there's
like
an actual
Pizzagate.
character for it.
That type stuff.
Actually, like the third episode has people. So like the show starts. It's a sit.
Yeah.
The show starts this season from where it left off last, where it's the Homelander in public killed somebody. He like lasered a dude's head off that threw a can at his son. Yeah. An empty can. Yeah. He's on trial. And Starlight, he's actually on trial.
I've seen the photos of this, and they're
Starlight has
great.
a contingent of protesters who are like, he has to pay and blah, blah, blah. And then the Homelander has a contingent of protesters. So it's basically like a small January 6th / Antifa thing happening.
Yeah.
And I forgot where I was going with this, but it's ripe for being very prescient about some very mentally precious people who are hateful. And it's really funny.
Man said
It's
mentally precious.
Yeah. I mean, they can't take conversations, so they're mentally precious.
I love. Is that you just come on? I love that. Anyway,
I've never heard that before.
wonderful.
You're welcome.
That's a Noelism. I love it.
Yeah.
A Noelism.
It's a good show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love The Boys.
Yeah.
I hated the comic book. Not for me. But The Boys TV show is miles above
I
the
think so
comic
too.
book.
Why did you hate the comic book? If I can ask.
My number one comic book of all time is Preacher by Garth Ennis.
Mm-hmm.
This is another series by Garth Ennis that came after Preacher finished, and I was excited. I was like, ooh, here we go. So the thing about Preacher is that there is an element of edgelordy. How can I top the last ridiculous thing I did?
Okay.
How can I shock the reader, right? But it is wrapped up in a really lovely relationship story, best friend story. There's a lot of heart and character to Preacher as a piece. And I was very excited about The Boys. For me, The Boys is all of that edgelord. How can I outdo the last gross thing I did this week or this month without the heart?
Any heart. Okay.
Well, I was gonna say, like in the comic. So if you want to compare Preacher, Garth Ennis, I read it understanding, or at least feeling, that Garth Ennis loved these characters, and then there was shit happening around it. Garth Ennis hates superheroes.
Yeah, he's upset.
yeah, I
does
have
not-
heard this already.
He did not like those. Like, none of the characters in The Boys is redeemable. And if somebody's going to come at me and be like, Huey's redeemable, Huey's milquetoast, and the plot happens to him the whole fucking time in the comic. He's not an active agent up until the very end. And if you lasted that long, cool.
I did not. I did like that he was drawn to look exactly like Simon Pegg,
who plays Huey's father in the show.
Yeah. Nice.
It was I have tried to read The Boys on multiple occasions, up to even the last reprint of the Omnis, and I was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna read it. Everyone's talking about it. I'll finally get through it, because I was getting it in issues. Like, okay, if anybody doesn't know, if you remember, The Boys was published at Wildstorm by DC, first 6 issues.
Oh.
Everyone freaked the fuck out, and they dropped the book completely.
Yeah, I forgot.
And Dynamite picked up picked
That
it
tracks.
up and then
That seems like a
published
Dynamite
afterwards.
book.
So I somewhere in my bins, I still have the Wildstorm first couple of issues.
Ooh.
So I was reading it. I read the first 20 something issues as they were going, and I just had to bounce out, because it was all nihilism. It was all hateful. And there was no redeeming quality. There was no heart. It was just, look how fucked up people with power can be, and sit in it.
Yeah.
And there's no catharsis.
Yeah.
So I just didn't enjoy it as a book, whereas the show, it's not the same.
No, not at all. It does have that heart that I think is missing from the comic book. And just very quickly before we move on, there's a side show called Gen V.
That I've heard about as well.
This show takes place in college, where they are training people to become superheroes, to become part of the 7, which is the superhero team. This show has, I think, more heart than even the Boys TV show has, because you're following these people who generally want to do well, and they want to help people. That's why they go to this college, is to like learn to be superheroes. And so I really am more tuned into their struggles and what they're going through. And also a lot of their superpowers are kind of one-to-one what a lot of kids go through going to college. One of them is bulimic. And in order to get small, she has to throw up her food. So yeah, it's like stuff like that. I really like Gen V. If you haven't checked it out, highly recommend. Was that it? Did we do it?
Yeah, we did it.
So that's what we've been up to this week. I'll tell you something else we've been up to this week because Alice.
That's me.
There she is.
Ooh.
Me.
We were
Hi.
like, Alice, if you could make us, that's my fetish. Having people tell me what media to consume. So we said, Alice, can you tell us something that we should check out? And you said,
The Nasty.
The Nasty.
The Nasty, published by Vault Comics, written by John Leese, with art by Adam Cahoon, K. Michael Russell, and Jim Campbell.
Scotland, 1994. 18-year-old Thumper Connell still has an imaginary friend. The masked killer from his favorite slasher film. Thumper is obsessed with horror and always has been. He fills his time with scary VHS rentals and hanging out with his fellow fans, the Murder Club.
Yep.
But everything changes when his local video shop acquires one of the notorious films known as Video Nasties, films so scary that they're the target of the British Moral Decency League's crusade to ban and burn. But it's only a movie, right? It's all just imaginary, isn't it? A story about the perception of evil, the power of genre, the love of fandom, the need to create art. Oh, and crap your pants terror.
So I don't know how to start this conversation in so much as on this side of the table, we're older than you.
Yes. Just barely.
So I left. I wanted to, whatever.
I'll take it.
Video Nasty.
Yeah.
Were you familiar with the terminology Video Nasty and what that was before reading this?
But I impressed people that I knew what it was. Later on, I was having a conversation with someone we know from the UK who also loves horror, and he was telling me about how his dad used to trade Video Nasties.
Really?
And he's like, oh, you might not know what that is. And I'm like, oh, I do.
I know all about it.
I'm sorry, have you heard of this comic book? It's
So,
about exactly what you're talking about?
I did add to the notes what a video nasty is for anyone that doesn't know. It's a colloquial term popularized in the National Viewers and Listeners Association in the UK to refer to a number of films, typically low-budget horror or exploitation films, distributed on video cassette that were criticized for their violent content and by the press, social commentators, and various religious organizations in the early 80s. This lasted all the way through most of the 90s, and they released a list of 72 films that the office believed to violate the Obscene Publications Act of 1959. There are many on here that I've never heard of, and then some that are very, very popular in the States. But there was 2 sections of prosecuted films and then ones that were unprosecuted.
Oh.
Like the prosecuted films were the ones that they all watched and were like, make these changes, never. And the unprosecuted ones were the movies that were submitted to them of like, is this going to be okay? Are you like, and then suggested to make cuts or not if they were going to get released. Movies like The Evil Dead.
Really?
The Thing, Cannibal Holocaust.
Yeah, that tracks.
Fight
John
for Your Life.
Carpenter's The Thing?
Yeah.
I was just going to ask which one. Yeah.
What?
The Beyond, The Boogeyman, Cannibal Terror, Contamination, Dead and Buried, Death Trap, Delirium, Don't Go
Death
in
Trap.
the House.
Don't.
Yeah, that was so good. Possession.
Possession.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that one too.
And then
Finally watched that on Shudder.
The Wikipedia page for this is fantastic because they give you the whole list of the movies. But
It's a to-do list.
But they basically
Honestly, I'm like,
then
okay, I need to watch that.
where the information is available, they'll tell you when it was released, how much was cut from it, and when the uncut version was released. So, one of the nasties. Let's look up a good one. Demons. 2000. A composite version passed uncut in 2008, and the original version was passed uncut in 2017.
I just rewatched that a couple months ago. Dario Argento's Demons. It's so bad. It's trash.
Tenebra, also Dario Argento.
seen that.
It originally passed for cuts for the cinema, but the rules were different for video cassette than for cinema, which is a part of this
Which
book.
we learned
Yes,
in
it
this
is.
book.
It
Yeah, I
is,
couldn't
yeah.
believe it.
It was released. I'm sorry, I lost.
So arbitrary and weird, right?
Yeah, it was released with 5 seconds cut in 1999 for video, but then re-released uncut in 2003. So this was happening for basically 20 fucking years, where the British government had a stranglehold on home releases, which was so wild. Yeah, so then now you've got bootlegs and small video stores that are passing along video nasties.
I
on
am
the sly.
seeing murmurings online about the upcoming election and a certain handbook that has been created in order to get things rolling on day one.
25.
Yeah. There was a whole episode of it on John Oliver.
Yeah.
So, and I'm hearing that some of that also deals with stuff like this and censoring and
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
God.
So weird.
yeah. So Alice was like, read this shit. So he read this shit.
Can I say where I heard about it first?
Sure.
On a really cool podcast called Fresh Floppies.
Hey, bwah, bwah, bwah.
You guys had
Available
read-
every Wednesday.
Yeah.
Fresh Floppies is a show that Noel and I do on Wednesday mornings. Spoiler-free reviews of the comics that come out that day, and we reviewed issue number 1.
Yeah, I think I remember.
And I think I like immediately went and I like subscribed. I like didn't even read it. I was like,
Why are
subscribe me
you-
for that.
Grab me one.
Why are you so awesome? I remember seeing this in the previews catalog and just liking the log line, because comic books are so wonderful in the way that they could focus. This is an 8-issue miniseries about an incredibly specific,
Right?
bespoke conflict in the middle of a nothing town in Scotland
Yeah.
that only some people know about, and most of them are deep in their 40s.
Yeah.
But comics is a place where you can explore that. So I remember reading the solicitations and being like, hey, let's just like issue 1. Let's just try it. And both of us, I remembered liking it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we really liked it.
And I continued to get it, but I didn't read it until this week.
Yeah.
I just continued to get the issues like, oh, I'm gonna get back at this. And I didn't until this week.
Same.
Yeah.
Exact same. I wound up grabbing the trade paperback.
Which just came out like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So Alice, what was it about this series that made you go, hey, let's check this out? Besides us telling you to check it out.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but you were more committed than we were.
That's true.
So, well, first of all, this is my first floppy.
Yeah.
That's your first floppy?
As I've said before,
Nice.
before my local comic book shop, I would always get trades.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
tends to be what I lean towards now, just because the format I'm used to reading it in.
Sure, yeah.
And then I started listening to Fresh Floppies, and I started getting more into floppies, and this was my first one.
That's awesome.
And so I thought it'd
And
be
it was
cool
fresh.
It was fresh, so
Here,
I thought
do
it'd
you
be
want-
cool to talk about with you.
Do you want first print? As that's a reprint.
Oh.
Frazier, get that bitch slabbed.
We'll
That was
explain that
beautiful.
later.
Thank you. But I also know you
Here.
guys, one of the first things we bonded over was horror.
What the fuck you
Yeah.
doing? Protect that first print special edition.
The first, yeah. So all of us are horror fans.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how we all
I-
first started hanging out. We went to see
I-
Scream 6 together.
Yeah.
I wasn't always, but yeah, definitely most of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to be afraid of the video store.
Oh, wait.
I told you this story
because
before.
of the cutouts.
Yeah.
I've heard this story when I listened
yeah.
to the podcast before I was on it.
Like it's all my anxiety looks like Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
And they kept that cut out.
Mine is Tim Curry as Pennywise.
Yeah.
Nice. That's a good
Yeah.
one.
They kept that Freddy cut out, and I remember finding it online. It was like it's from part 4, and it's just a life-size cutout of him like meh.
Yeah.
They kept that in my local video store for like 5 years, and it was at the archway for the kids section.
Oh,
It's so fucked up.
that's hilarious.
Someone did that on purpose.
Someone's
Someone
like-
was really,
and
really
then
mean.
sometimes it would move. So I would
follow you
know
around the
I
store?
would know my safe passageways through the aisles and the sections, but sometimes it would just be like over here as opposed to over there.
The worst. I'm so sorry.
It's all right.
The one that
I got
always
over
stuck
it.
with me was, I want to say, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to me. It was a gentleman screaming, and there was a
Kebab.
barbecue kebab
Oh, yeah.
coming right into his mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And that always stuck with me. There's no violence. You don't see anything. He's not even attached to it.
That's a
But-
plot point in the book too. The idea that like the cover art and the poster art was sometimes
scarier.
than the movie. Yeah.
more put together and better than the movie itself.
Yeah.
But initial thoughts.
Yeah.
Overall, what are your thoughts of this book before we
I
like
loved
really?
it. I looked forward to getting it whenever it came in. I was so excited when I come to shop and you're like, hey, we got it. And I'm like, I'm reading this immediately when I get home. I loved it. It was a really fun experience. It was like my first floppy, like reading issue by issue and like looking forward to like finishing and be like, I can't wait until the next one comes out.
Yeah.
I loved it. I really did.
I was surprised it was only 8 issues. That is a strange number.
I was one of my. If I was gonna dig at it, I was like, I think probably could have been like 2 less or 1 less.
Yeah. A 6 issue would have done just fine.
But yeah.
What did you think?
Oh, I thought it was really fun. If I want to like fine tooth comb it, there's a couple of nitpicks, but all of them are smooth overable, because I could have come up with a better word for that. All of them could be smoothed over by how much charm and how sweet and earnest a lot of these characters are, and how much I didn't want them to be hurt. Yeah. So like some of the pacing.
This is my favorite cover. Sorry, I was just like,
I was gonna bring this up. Go ahead.
No. Issue 5 is my favorite cover.
Oh, that's a good one too.
I didn't bring it. That one. That's my favorite
this is
cover.
A good one.
That's the actual House of Creeping Flesh.
Yeah.
There were some art choices that I didn't love.
Yes.
There were some pacing issues that I was like, okay, that seems a little ish. There was some dialogue ticks that I like. The main character's name is Graham, but everyone calls him Thumper.
Yeah.
There are multiple times, and I was following everything, but there are multiple times when people will interchange what they call him in the moment, and it just kind of fucks with the flow of the scene.
Graham is spelled interestingly.
Also, there's a lot of phonetic colloquial spellings in here, which great for a scene or like to set stage, but everyone has a different affectation. So it's all kind of spelled a little differently, which is, I found myself almost lingering too long on dialogue.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it just kind of messes a little bit with the pacing, but overall, it's delightful as shit.
Yeah.
It was really, really sweet, and it was really, really fun. What about you?
Everything you guys just said. I think I had a bigger problem with the art. I think it is cute. What about the art? It's cute. It's a little too cutesy by half. And I don't think that all of the acting is... There's no subtlety really to this.
No, it's very broad.
It's very broad,
as far as the acting and the facial expressions are concerned, and the way people are emoting.
Oh, what do you mean, like that?
Yeah.
There's 2 or 3 issues started with media res. You're either watching the movie they're making, or you're watching another movie, and then it's kind of revealed that it's a scene. And they will do that subtly with the art, kind of having like a fuzziness to it. There were some times when that was happening and it was revealed to be a dream, or it was revealed to be a scene they filmed, or it was dreaming about a scene they filmed. And the art wasn't differentiated quite enough for me to know, have real grounding. And then there was one scene, I think in the second to last or last issue, when Thumper and Mira are having a heart to heart. And it's, for some reason, is done in kind of a black and white. And I'm thinking, okay, so it's a flashback, or they filmed this, and it took me a scene later to realize this was Mira, because they changed her skin tone in that black and white section. And I'm like, that sequence. Yeah.
So my problem with this
confusing to me.
is he literally says, I only ever saw you and talked to you because I imagined you were there. Even this conversation's only going on in my head. And then it continues in the black and white. This is the conversation. But then we find out, he picks up the diary and reads it. So this is
real.
This is real. Oh, okay. It's not just in your head. It is. Yeah. I wonder if there was like a miscommunication in the coloring.
Maybe. It just, I feel like it's a solid 8.
Yeah.
Small editorial adjustments like that would have made this a 10. Yeah. Just to kind of like clean and tighten here and there. But I had never read anything from this writer or this artist before. And
this is their first.
It's a name I will
it's a banger.
Hang on to. Like this is just, there's so much fucking charm. And I love something that focuses on a niche specific topic.
Yeah.
And you don't need to know about that topic.
Yeah, I didn't know about video nasties.
I love video stores. I love crazy horror movies.
Another series that you and I are enjoying right now, and today's episode of Fresh Floppies, which hasn't dropped yet, you and I talked about Grommets.
Yeah.
Grommets number 2, which is another really awesome comic book that takes place in the 1985. And it's about 2 skaters in California and just their lives being skaters, in high schoolers. And in this particular issue, you felt too many references. Like, hey, look at this reference and look at this reference. Did you have any problem with the nasty?
No.
I was just gonna ask. I was gonna say I loved their so instead of Friday the 13th, they have Labor Day.
Yeah.
Which is where is it Dark Ennis is his name?
Red Ennis.
Red Ennis. What a strange name.
These are all.
He's clearly supposed to be like Jason.
Jason
He
Voorhees.
attacks people.
You can't see on my shirt, Jason Voorhees.
It's Jason Voorhees. This is a design by Johnny Destructo at Johnny Destructo's Hero Complex at 4327 Main Street.
That's the one.
Here in Manning, FBI.
Nice.
I didn't mind it because these were all they made up a lot of them. Actually, one of my favorite parts of this was when they're in the video store, reading the names on posters.
I was going to say I loved the made up
background.
They're their horror movies in their universe. I loved.
Whereas the Grommets was they go out of their way to make a specific reference to a specific thing in a way that's inorganic to how normal people will talk to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like it would be the equivalent if Thumper is just like, hey Mira, did you watch that extended scene cut of Friday the 13th part 7?
Yeah.
And that one
on VHS?
On VHS? No, I prefer beta because I have nothing in the dialogue is inorganic or not much, if at all, in the dialogue is inorganic in this book. Whereas with that one, it became overly reference heavy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the movie posters are Moby Nipple instead of Moby Dick. Oscar's Revenge 11, which is a pug with a Tommy gun.
The Taxman, I would watch.
I believe this says Plague of Dicks.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Some of the video nasties that the guy has on his shelf that he's Horny Death Goblin, House of Creeping Flesh, Ice Pick Killer,
nasty.
Yeah.
In Uranus, Jane Eyre, and
Jane Eyre.
That's pretty good. Jane Eyre, that's pretty good.
Yeah, some of these.
Imagine that's supposed to be Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies, but in their universe.
This is. I love this stuff. There's just so much charm.
The charm is what got me.
Yeah.
I think I just saw past all the other stuff because I was like, it's so charming.
There's a movie on the shelf called Furry Road.
Yeah.
Nice. Funt. Okay. But it's a picture of an old lady waving. Funt. And then my favorite, Dune with two O's.
Yeah.
And a
nice.
And
Dune.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Right, because it's Scottish.
Yeah.
Dune. Oh, for fuck's sake.
That was good.
The nasty basically is we have our main character. He grows up watching not Friday the 13th, Labor Day slasher movies. And then we discover in the first issue that this Red Ennis, who is not Jason Voorhees, is basically his childhood friend.
Yeah, and
imaginary friend,
imaginary friend. Thank you.
Magical videotape makes him a little bit more real.
And other people can see him.
And hilarity ensues.
And so there's a struggling video rental shop. And so have you ever gone? The 24-hour horror movie marathon.
I've been to the 12-hour exploitation.
From Exhumed.
Yeah.
And so basically, Not Exhumed is coming to do a 3-day horror movie marathon where they're going to be checking out video nasties. And the owner of this rental spot found the most nasty of all the video nasties on cassette tape or a videotape. Nobody has ever seen it, and they're going to be showing it, and that's how they're going to start to make money to save this video shop. And then then shit pops out from there. I would totally pick this up. This is one of those books that you won't really hear about unless you seek it out. It's The Nasty by Vault. Also, if I can make a recommendation that I kept thinking about while reading this, speaking of a videotape that is kind of cursed, there is a Shudder produced podcast, audio podcast called The White Tapes.
Ooh.
And it is a found footage
Love found footage.
podcast,
That's
which I listened to
incredible.
a couple years ago, and I think you'd like it. It's really good. So yeah, they're basically recording what's happening.
Before we run away, what do you got there?
Well, if you are like us and you also like horror and you like comic books, then you should also check out maybe Creepshow.
Love
Creepshow
this.
is back. I don't know if you guys are aware, but Creepshow was 2 really awesome anthology series from the 80s. The first one was from Stephen King and
A bunch.
not John Carpenter.
No, it wasn't John
It was
Carpenter.
Craven, somebody. And now the TV show is back on Shudder. There's a new Creepshow.
Greg
But
Nicotero.
There's Greg Nicotero from The Walking Dead. And yeah, so this is an anthology comic book by way of the Tales from the Crypt, like the old EC comics.
Very
but
fun.
Modern.
I read it.
George Romero.
Romero,
Yeah,
thank you.
Wow.
Duh.
And one of my favorite horror graphic novels of the past maybe 6 years. Joe Hill is the son of Stephen King, and he had his own imprint at DC Comics called The Hill House, where he was curating a bunch of
Horror
comic book
comics.
series
Yeah.
from different writers. And one of the ones he did was actually called Basket Full of Heads. And this is
I was gonna say you've read
Love.
this, right?
Love.
Okay,
so
good.
good. Speaking of Tales from the Crypt, it feels very much in line with that sort of sensibility.
Yeah.
Kind of a horror comedy
Yeah.
trash.
Oh,
and
super
so
trashy.
it is takes place in the 70s. It is a home invasion story, but with a twist. She comes across an axe, and while protecting the house, anybody she decapitates with this axe stays alive.
Not just decapitation, but yeah, the axe keeps whatever it's severed alive.
Yeah,
It's
highly
awesome.
recommend. There's also a sequel called Refrigerator Full of Heads. So yeah, if you're looking for some good horror comics, get them.
Do it.
Anything else?
No, these
we
are
do
great
it?
read, man.
Yeah, check them out.
So check it out at your
Thanks for
local
being my
comic
horror
shop.
friends. I love
Yeah.
Hey.
it. Solid.
All right. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Let us know what your favorite horror comics are. I would like to
Yeah.
find some more.
Or I want to know
Rex.
more about movie fetishes. I really like Pink's
Oh,
question
yeah.
about movie fetishes. I want to know more.
Yeah. Email your movie fetishes. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, and we'll talk at you later. Skeedly-dee-doo.
Young Drunk!